Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, my name is Falzon and I'm a digital artist. Today, while this replay for my painting The Solitary Witch gently unfolds, I'm gonna touch on a subject that has been germane all my life. Since childhood, I fetishized the idea of being in a club and clubs in general. I think that we can lay this at the feet of the kind of books that I used to read back then and that were popular in the 90s with like the kids aged around 8. And I had this like preoccupation with being in a club basically. And I even started a little club called the Nature Detectives for myself and an other assorted band of misfits and nerds and people who just didn't fit in really. And we used to hang out in our school, and I made these like little badges for us, and we used to meet up at recess and pretend that we were solving mysteries. Yeah, super nerdy. It would be easy to look at this as like a desire to want to belong, and maybe I'd never really analyzed it actually before today, but with time I found out that this desire to have clubs didn't really stem from that. For example, I was for 2 years in a roller derby league as a grown-up, and it kind of was like being in a coven in a way. And again, it wasn't so much about being in a group and having teammates as it was about the accoutrements of being in a club like this. I was like a secret handshake type person more than anything else. I always even loved the idea of starting a commune, or even on my more sinister days, a cult. But it's not really about being in the cult. You see, I'm introverted to the max. And I'm not using it as an interchangeable term with shy, because I'm not shy at all. So I'm using it in the Jungian sense. And I suppose lots of artists tend to be introverts. It just means that I get energy from being by myself, and people take my energy away from me. Extroverts get energy from hanging out with people. So a few years ago, that like I want to build a society gene rang true in my bloodstream, and I grabbed a bunch of my friends here in Berlin. I always was interested in it and in tarot and that kind of stuff, and my friends were pretty witchy, so we were like, oh my god, we should start a coven. And I like threw myself into it because like any true millennial coven, I wanted to have a logo and a brand and hoodies and like a newsletter and all that kind of stuff. But like 2 Sabbats in, like 2 times we hung out as the coven, and I found that like the hanging out bit was just too much for me. And I was really into, again, like the secret handshake part of it, but not at all into the actual thing that I suppose most people like out of belonging to a club. Anything to do with the actual socializing I find extremely boring, and I can't wait for it to end. Aside from the witchcraft stuff, I'm really into the paranormal. In fact, my most recent podcast, it's free for everybody to listen to. I'm gonna put a link below. It's my Patreon podcast, deals about my personal experience with the paranormal, so you should go give it a listen if you have some time. But like growing up is kind of learning to know yourself, and I know that I have to limit my social engineering to the realms of fantasy, because when it comes down to it, I cannot have sustained socializing. Like the only way I can socialize for a few hours is if I had a bit to drink, which I don't really like to do anymore, so I don't. I find that as an introvert, I love socializing in small and intense spurts where I have complete control. This is why I loved being at Burning Man last year, because I was there by myself and I wandered around by myself and I did lots of exploring by myself, and I could just like dip in to some human contact for 10 minutes and then go away, which is basically how I would love human interaction to be for me. When I drew this witch, I wanted it to be a kind of embodiment of that. She's like happy to be heading solitarily into the stormy wilderness. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next week.